All right, good morning. We are in the Silver Sponsor Vendor Hall sessions. I am here with Dr. Bill Munn from NGA 911, and he's going to be talking about disaster preparedness. I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself. Go ahead and take it away from here.
Okay, thank you. I'm Dr. Bill, a large 911 district. And in the meantime, I worked with Texas A&M University to develop a course in emergency management, which is that course the subject we used to know as civil defense if you grew up during the Eisenhower administration. But one of the things that occurred to me as there was practicing in both industries is there was very little contact, very little understanding between emergency management and the 911 profession. And I'd like to say right off, with NGA 911, we are very proud to serve the call takers and those who take the calls and make 911 work. We think you're where the rubber meets the road, and we're very happy to be part of that family. We're a cloud-based company with next-gen and core services, and a silver sponsor to this event. But one of the particularly rewarding things for me over the last 30 years in the industry is seeing 911, the call taker, dispatcher, go from a job to a career and then a profession. And our company's proud to be part of that. Now, one of the things that I worked on was to develop a course in 911 center emergency management or disaster recovery. Because I found that there wasn't a lot of connection between the emergency management folks and the 911 folks. I would talk to emergency management, city or the county about their relationship. I said, what do you do when 911 goes down? And they said, I guess we call the phone company. So, and with 911, we were pretty good at 911, but didn't have a lot of knowledge about how to do an emergency plan or how emergency management worked. So it was my pleasure to work on sort of marrying the two professions together and create an ability to develop emergency contingency plans for 911 centers, because as long as there are backhoes and thunderstorms and directives and hurricanes, there will be 911 failures. And while we recognize there are certain things that we can't prevent, we can at least provide emergency plans to, number one, make sure that call is still answered. It may not be answered in our center, but it's going to be answered somewhere. So our objectives in providing programs for the 911 centers in terms of emergency management is, first of all, to prevent service interruptions. And as I said before, there are still backhoes out there, digging equipment, thunderstorms, so interruptions are going to happen. So the next step is, when they do occur, we want to be able to minimize the impact, and so it's not as widespread. We want to shorten the duration. It's not always possible, but the main thing is, if our PSAP is down for longer than we want, make sure that call goes somewhere. The objective is no 911 call ever goes unanswered. Now, for this presentation, or for this actually phase of what we try to do in terms of the 911 disaster recovery for PSAP, I borrow heavily from emergency management doctrine, and they provide 4 phases of the emergency management. First one is mitigation, and these are those activities in terms of emergency management to minimize the likelihood that an area is going to be affected by a disaster, or it's going to occur. For our purposes, we think of these as activities designed to either eliminate the outages or shorten the duration of outages that do occur. And some of the things we do in that regard are, let's do another slide. No, we need to go back. All right. Some of those things which you probably deal with every day are, how do we do diverse routing? Do diverse routing so that all of your communication is not in one place, not on one cable or one circuit. And we refer to that as avoiding single points of failure, which is kind of emergency management 101. Make sure that there's not a single point on your network that can take your whole thing down. Now, the next phase, and like I said, we borrow heavily from emergency management, is planning. And this is developing the effective response plan, and that's mostly what we're going to be talking about today. It's how we put together a plan that you can take it off the shelf if you have an emergency. If you have a service interruption, it will be an effective guide to get you through that. It considers all the outages, it considers all the steps to restore service, and should be in every PSAP. Okay? The third phase is the response, which is the response to the outage itself. Those things that happen to either restore fully your 911 service or continuing the call processing function, maybe through another PSAP or even through another county. Depends on the circumstance. And then the fourth response is the recovery. Now, these are the activities that get you back to where you were before. And in the emergency management way of thinking, these are activities that restore business, restore life as it was before the disaster. And ideally, in the recovery phase, it leads right into the mitigation phase. In your recovery activities, you do things that will minimize the risk. And in our circumstances, that's the same. When we recover our function, are there things we can do that will lessen the likelihood that this is going to happen again? Like I said, diverse routing, maybe making your PSAP a harder target. Anyway, now, like I said, the main function of our discussion today is what the plan should be. We have several characteristics of an effective emergency plan. And this goes for emergency management too, not just for 911. But one of the things it should be, first and foremost, it should be comprehensive. If your plan's not a comprehensive plan, then you're not covered for all the possible circumstances that could take you down. It should include all the elements of an effective response, including those from outside your agency. As someone once told me, in an emergency management scenario, you shouldn't be exchanging business cards in while you're standing in the rubble. In other words, people that you have to interact with to put together an effective response, you should know them now. You should know what their role is. They should know what their role is. They should know your role, and you should know each other. And your agency should know each other. And the second is your backup plan, your emergency plan should be comprehensive, and that it includes all the key personnel, all the people that will back them up in case they are not available. And, people go on vacations, people are sick. There are going to be times when the emergency requires people to step up and fill in who've not done that before. But the other thing we need to know is contact information. You need to be able to take your binder or whatever you put your emergency plan in and call everyone who needs to come in, who needs to be part of your response. And I know that service outages, they may be 5-minute outages. They may be minimal. Maybe something where you route your call to another PSAP for 5 minutes until you're back up and you take your call back. I've seen them last 3 or 4 days when city crew dug through a water main and the central office was underwater. So you don't know, but the plan should address that and especially include the personnel that are going to play a role and how to get in contact with them. Your emergency plan should be collaborative. In other words, when you develop your plan, you should involve all the personnel, all the agencies that have a role in that plan, in your organization and outside your organization. Anybody who has a part in it should be part of the plan, even if it's just to read the plan and say, hey, this looks good to us. They've found in studies in emergency management that personnel, and I'm talking about all levels of the organization, who had a role in writing the plan are more enthusiastic and more effective in participating in the plan than if it's just handed to them and said, this is the plan, do it. And obviously it should be updated. You don't want to have a list of 5 key people you need to call in and find out that 2 of them had retired last year and 1 of them is on a month-long vacation. But include, if you can't get hold of them, who can they get hold of and how do you do it and who steps in? Anyone that needs to be there, whether it's your agency or not, should be defined in that plan and should know how to get in touch with them. Because Mother Nature will decide that this outage occurs at the worst possible time. Mother Nature is not always our friend. We need to, in our plans, we need to be flexible. We've designed inclusive plans, but events may require mid-course corrections. If there's I've been told this by someone that's been in the business a long time, if there's a flaw in your plan, Mother Nature will find it and point it out to you and show you how stupid you were in developing that part of your plan. So if you can't include every possible occasion, include ways that you can get around it or call in backup, involve other associations or agencies, whatever you have to do to keep that call coming in. Like I said, either your organization or someone else's. But the main thing is you're in the field, you know what can happen, anticipate, and then reflect that in your planning. It should be distributed. Now, there's a lesson here that I usually point out when I'm teaching this course. When San Francisco had their earthquake back in the 1900 the fire chief of San Francisco anticipated that fire would be the biggest hazard in San Francisco in the event of an earthquake, not just the earthquake, but fire. And he had a very thorough plan to use the waterways in San Francisco to isolate areas so that fire was contained and would not sweep across the whole city. But when the earthquake occurred, a large smokestack next to the fire headquarters fell through the building. He died later, but he was put out of action immediately. I think he fell 2 floors into basically a boiler room. So it was horrible. But the fact is, his emergency plan was found in his desk after they were clearing out the rubble. No one saw it but him. So whether it would have been effective, no one knows. But it probably would have helped. But it does no good to develop a plan if no one sees it. Like I said, Mother Nature will probably make sure you have an outage at 2 o'clock in the morning when 2 people are there. But they need to be able to pull it off the shelf and open it up and put it into effect. Need to anticipate the fact that the key people may not be there. And it should be practiced. I don't know if I would jump across that. I surely wouldn't now. I don't know if I ever would have, but I love this picture because it tells us the importance of not only knowing the plan, but also being able to practice it. Now, in emergency management, these rehearsals can be quite involved. In fact, it's required that ever so often they actually have a full simulation, actually roll apparatus and respond to a possible emergency. Now, we not necessarily can't do that in emergency in our emergency communications. But I even had a director of one of my emergency communication centers. Well, I'll find out. I'll walk in at 1 o'clock in the morning and just shut it off. And I said, no, please don't do that. Let's not be stupid. Let's incorporate some process in there that at least someone knows it's coming, but we know how to put things into place to keep those calls coming in, even if it's a fully redundant 911 center that's there just for the purpose of filling in when the other one goes down. But the fact is, people have to know what their role is and have to know how to pull the switch, throw the switch. And also, another couple of important things here is knowing, some of you do it and some don't, have a bug out switch when it's time to just get out of your PSAP and send your calls to someone else. And but you have to know that, and the people that are going to be taking the calls need to know that. In our center, we had 2 occasions where one of our larger 911 centers, I mean one that takes 900 calls a day, was just down, period. And we had a backup procedure to send it to a similar sized city, but that kind of arrangement can't go on forever. You can't put full call load into one center that would normally distribute it to 2. So there has to be a process to take it back. Like I said, we allowed about 30 minutes to get to call people from one center to the center that was up. And incidentally, when you plan this, it should be in another central office area. So a central office failure doesn't take it all out. But you have to know when to send them and when to bring them back and when to declare it over. And that's something that should be practiced. Now, in our process, as you go through this, some of the things you will need to define are who the critical people are, obviously how you get in touch with them, and what critical decisions have to be made. Like I said, when do you throw the bug out switch? When do you say it's over? When do you bring people back? And what is the final resolution for your action under this plan? Now, I may have gone a little too quickly there, but that is the prepared plan that we've shown and we've shared with agencies all over the country. And like I said, I would like to thank you for joining us. Thank you for our Dare to Be Great organization. And that concludes our presentation.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties at the beginning. I'd imagine if anybody has questions for you, as I don't see any here at the bottom of the page, they can contact nga911.com.
Yes, they can. Love to hear from them.
All right. Well, thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.